Excellent. Welcome to this Tuesday Live. My name is Luca Simmons. I'm your holistic nutrition practitioner. And whether you're watching this live or after the fact, if you have any questions about the content we're covering in this weekly deep dive, then I invite you to pop them in the comments below. I'm in a different spot today because my kid is actually home. She is quarantined because of a classmate at school. And so she has my office. Lucky child. It's a really nice space where you can spread out, and she's doing a lot of online stuff, so it works better for her. So I'm in the kitchen. So there was a bird chirping to my left, your right, and there was a dog barking to my right, your left. Apologies if they're loud. That's how it goes in my house. So welcome to today's live. I hope that the content you find is of service to you. My bag is always to help people figure out how food and nutrition can be of service to help you better move through inflammatory stuff, chronic disease, not feeling great, stuff that shows up, you know? Being human. Oh my God. Can we please make your kitchen count for you and work for you? Oh yeah, that's a good idea. And that's my specialty, that's my bag. So today's topic, we are talking about stress all month long here on my social media handle. If you enjoyed this video and you're like, oh my God, I need some more, then you are going to find my YouTube channel. You can find it through my website, I suppose, lucasimmons.com, and then, or you could just do a search on YouTube. And I've been banking all of these Tuesday lives in different playlists according to the topic we're covering. So if you want to go do a little bit of a deeper dive and start putting some pieces in place for yourself, that's a good place to start. It's totally free. Yeah, I know. Max agrees. Okay. Today we're talking about the curious role of inflammation when it comes to adrenal vitality. So yes, adrenal and stress, the whole stress response is absolutely linked to inflammatory stuff, as are adrenals. They're really keenly involved in the whole process. These two animals were very quiet for the last 20 minutes. Do you think they're going to start piping up as soon as I talk? Yeah, they want to join the conversation. Sorry if the bird is a bit chirpy. Anyway, it's okay. So, hi, Sana. So, first things first, this is not medical advice. Let's just get that out of the way. We're just talking food, and we're just talking about some of the biochemistry of how the body works. So your adrenals have a really big part to play in moderating inflammatory processes in the body. So what does that mean? Okay, so you have two adrenals. Everybody has them, even men. I love that men think they don't. Lies. If you didn't, you'd be dead. Adrenals are about the size of your thumb. You have two of them, and they're sitting on top of your kidneys. Everybody wants them, everybody needs them, and everybody needs to take care of them. Because here's the deal. Hi, Claire. Adrenals are a super essential component in getting you up in the morning and helping you get through your day. They produce hormones. One of the major hormones that we know of is called cortisol. It's one that everyone has mentioned and probably heard about. Hello, Eliza. And so cortisol is one of those really important hormones that actually has an anti-inflammatory effect, curious enough. Okay, but Luca, if the adrenals are producing cortisol, how is that a terrible thing because I have inflammation? Well, first, let's equate what low-grade inflammation is. Yeah, there's inflammatory stuff like tendinitis. Like, that's an obvious. Anything that ends in itis means inflammation in the body. But I'll tell you, inflammation, the low-grade chronic kind, is what is common and at the root of all chronic diseases. You know, those diseases that take 10, 15, 20 years to show up, right? Heart disease doesn't just show up overnight. Hashimoto's doesn't just show up overnight. What are some of the other stuff? Lupus. Lupus takes a long time to show up. So these types of things all have a very common piece at the root of it all, and it is inflammation, but a low-grade chronic kind. And the type of inflammation you have going on in the body in those scenarios is a low-grade prod of your immune system and your adrenals. And it's a constant poke, prod, poke, prod, poke, prod. I'm going to put you in a stress response. That's what the inflammation response does. It puts you into the stress response. Now, the stress response is also known as the fight or flight. And it puts you in that response so that you can produce the chemicals you need to help fight what your body is perceiving as a saber-toothed tiger. Oh my gosh, how is that not a life-saving mechanism? Good work. See, the problem lies in the fact that our ancestors thousands of generations ago developed the saber-toothed tiger response, that fight or flight, to get out of harm's way. They did not have as much stress as we do now. Yeah, they had stress. Of course they had stress. Yeah. But they didn't have it in the amounts that we do now due to the toxins in our environment, the constant fear-mongering that sure stokes my saber-toothed tigers, brings them all into the inside pen. And then inflammatory stuff can also be triggered by emotional stuff. So think of, the threat of losing your job, the threat of losing your business, the threat of losing a loved family member, the threat of a chronic disease diagnosis, and everything that comes along with that and the emotional part of it. Now, add to this, there's also intergenerational trauma that is adding to your body's fight or flight scenario and turning that trigger on all the time. Intergenerational trauma is now being linked. So things that would have happened, my love goes out and light goes out to everyone, but things like moving through wars and famines, things like families being ripped apart because of the 60s scoop, anything you want to talk about, a civil war, those types of high stress where it feels like you're going to die every day. Sounds like 2020. No, it's two different things, but they incite very similar reactions in the body. So when those reactions go on, it turns on that stress response, fight or flight, saber-toothed tiger, call it what you want. It's all the same thing. And it's all the same biochemical processes. Now let's tie it into adrenals. So in that stress response, whether it be from a physical stress because you had an injury, whether it's from physical stress because there's violence in your home, whether it is emotional stress because you are about to lose your job, whether it is intergenerational trauma where you are now undoing some of the super deep patterns that have altered genes and a bunch of other stuff and turned on your stress response to be on all the time because your great-great-grandmother had a really terrible home life. Oh, those types of things add up. And here we are in 2020 with all of these things staring us in the face, and we have to fix it. So even the stress of feeling like we have to fix it now adds to that stress load. So I want you to think of stress load as all of those components, the toxins in our environment we have to deal with, the toxins emotionally, the stress, and moving through this life as a human, including carrying that of those who came before us. Okay. So the adrenals are a part of this whole process because when stress is on, it starts with something called the HPA axis, which ties in your hypothalamus, H, pituitary, P, adrenals, A, HPA. So what happens is, panic alert, bring in the saber-toothed tiger, trigger that fight or flight, trigger the inflammatory process. The hypothalamus goes, red alert, guys, we have a problem. That now triggers the pituitary, and now the pituitary goes, hey, adrenals, poke, poke, poke. Could you release cortisol? Cortisol is one of the hormones that's released in that fight or flight response. Cortisol, interestingly enough, has an anti-inflammatory effect. Wait, Luca, so does that mean cortisol is going to be really good for me? I want to produce it. Oh yeah, in the early stages, yeah, cortisol is a helper. It's not a terrible thing. Except, here's the deal. Trip that system too often, and your adrenals are always trying to make cortisol. When they make enough cortisol and the levels are up, now there's a shutting off mechanism that happens. So when you've got just enough cortisol to react to the situation at hand, the extra cortisol now actually shuts down the hypothalamus. So it's kind of a self-limiting system, which is awesome. Then you turn off that stress response in the body and you shut down that inflammatory process. Awesome. Love it. So great. Oh, what's happening then? Well, imagine your adrenals are always going poke, 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 poke. Oh my God, I'm going crazy. Well, yeah, your adrenals are going to be like, piss off. I'm going to go have a nap. I've run out of fuel. Can I please get a rest? And now your adrenals are having a hard time making cortisol. I mean, it takes a super duper long time to get to that stage. And there are ways to recoup from that. It's not a short-term solution either. It's a long-term reassessment and lifestyle shift, I'll be honest. It's not pop a pill and we're done. But when your adrenals cannot now produce enough cortisol to turn that whole system off, now it's kind of always on and it never shuts off. And this now starts to ask the adrenals to work even more. So again, it's very much like a snowball going down the side of a mountain. Now, how this now impacts the rest of your body is that HPA axis, right, that hypothalamus triggers the pituitary, which now triggers the adrenals. The adrenals are supposed to come back, make enough cortisol to shut the whole thing down. Oh, they can't. So now you're trying to make more cortisol because there's a request to make more. You don't have enough nutrients to make it. That's now impacting every other hormone in your system. That's why anybody who has any type of hormonal imbalance, any type of hormone stuff going on, including the thyroid, including mood stuff, very much a hormonal function, including fertility stuff, very much a hormonal thing, digestive issues, oh, that is totally a hormonal thing. I was at the dentist this morning, and my lovely gal who was cleaning my mouth, she was talking about the impact of hormones, how they can actually sway the inflammatory processes in the gums. Like hormones, when they're out of balance, further contribute to this inflammatory system, as you can imagine. So, okay, bleh. So I have thyroid issues. Do I not address thyroid? Well, yeah, but I'll tell you the root piece of it is actually adrenals, because there's a whole lot of fight or flight, panic mode, saber-toothed tigers going on. Everything is inflammation. Everything will always go back to low-grade inflammation, because low-grade inflammation is a closed-loop system that ends up, if you stoke it too many times, feeds itself and sort of grows on itself. So I totally went right off of what I was going to talk about. Oh, poops. But anyway, okay, so adrenals will release cortisol as part of that stress response, which is partially what you want. One of the things that cortisol can do is that it starts to short circuit or it impacts the production of your white blood cells. So that's why people who have, when we're talking about low-grade chronic inflammation, I want to tie in their autoimmune conditions as well, right? So autoimmune conditions, glaucoma is now one, which is interesting. Psoriasis is autoimmune. Hashimoto's is autoimmune. Lupus is autoimmune. Scleroderma is autoimmune. Like, there are so many autoimmune issues out there. That autoimmune condition is because your immune system is ramped up. So while the adrenals are really keenly involved in actually calling that inflammatory system to go on, your immune system is the one that actually mounts the inflammatory compounds like cytokines and the reaction to try to mitigate the inflammatory processes going on in the body. So as you can imagine, the more cortisol you release, the more you're starting to shut down immunity, but then immunity is trying to catch up and deal with the inflammatory processes going on. And then all of that system is just right out of sync. So inflammatory processes, while I talked about emotional trauma, physical stuff, the loss of jobs, relationship, intergenerational trauma, let's add to that autoimmune conditions. I'm sad now. I think you probably are too. So, so I'll crack a fart joke. No, I won't. But just about time's up. So I just want to say, when we're talking about the stress response in the body, because that's the topic all month long, we've really been focusing on a few of the different aspects involved when we're looking at the feeling of stress and that fear, the slowing down ability to move through it with a bit more ease. I love nutrition because I think it's one of those biochemical ways that you can nourish the hormones and the hormone-making organs in that system. Targeted nutrition support. Figure out where's the leak. Where can we figure out what's at the root of it all and put the pieces back in place so we can reduce through nutrition? Because what you eat 3 to 5 times a day is going to have a really big sway on how you can reduce inflammation, if you're stoking the fires of inflammation, or if you're doing things to improve what might be at the root of inflammatory processes for you. And remember, inflammation is stress. Stress is inflammation. So what do you do in this case? Well, keep following this channel for the month of November. We're talking about stress. I talked about nutrients last week. We'll talk about foods and teas and other things. But I also have adrenal specific classes coming up. I'm doing a 1 afternoon class in tandem with my lovely friend Claire. And I'm doing a 6-week class where we're focusing on adrenals for the winter season in that Eating with the Seasons class. Both of those I'll link down below in the comments here on Facebook and over on YouTube as well. If this resonates with you, can I ask you to share this with someone you think would need it? In these weird times, I think if we can do anything to hold each other up, I think that's how we're going to get through all of this. So big love to you guys for checking this out today, and I wish you well, and go eat something delicious. Okay, bye!